issue that artists and poets have isn't that the art isn't of significance, it's that no one has known about it. You're not really looking for partnerships, you're looking for relationships. Like if I wanted to spend 7 hours reading your work and seeing your interviews and hearing your thoughts on things, would I be able to do that? You are who Google says you are, or who the internet says you are. That is a huge concept in Daniel Priestley's Key Person of Influence. We're going to talk about how we can apply this textbook and that concept, trying to be findable in creating your own poetry or art business. We're going to be talking about how to become more findable online, why it's so key to do that, and part of that strategy is also going to involve creating more relationships. What are the objectives behind trying to have a greater presence online? Well, part of it is because of just your ability to give more. You know that here at The Verses, we're really big on impact. We're trying to impact more people. I think the biggest issue that artists and poets have isn't that the art isn't of significance, it's that no one has known about it. And to get better known, you have to reach more people. And how do you reach more people? Well, you have to have a greater impact on people's lives. The biggest companies you know of are big. You know of them because they have impacted you or they have impacted people close to you. And so when you're able to increase your online presence, you're able to enter more people's lives. That is going to make it easier for people to find you because they're going to know where to turn to locate you. And they're also going to know where to direct other people who they think you could be a benefit for. Additionally, by increasing your online presence and your online profile, what it does is it gives people more opportunities to spend time with you. If you want to think about the last time that you bought something, you might be a person who's like me, like for instance, even like here, like I had to buy some chairs because we did a panel or a series of panels. We had a book fair some time ago and we had a series of panels, which was great. And we have this kind of like little staging area right here. And I needed a place for people to sit because this desk is a little bit elevated and my normal chairs weren't going to work. So I had to find some chairs and I spent probably about an hour just looking up chairs, just trying to find like a stool like this. And this is the one that obviously I picked. But you know, I'm someone who does a lot of research on things, which means that I need to spend time on the thing that I'm about to buy. I could speak to my own communication business too. A lot of people who sign on to me as students are people who have watched, for instance, my YouTube channels, or they've found my textbook or found my podcast, and they've watched it at times for more than a year, sometimes even more than 2 years. Before they ever made a purchase with me, they were spending time with me. You know, like each video you make is like a duplicate of yourself. Each podcast you make, each blog post you write, each social media post you make, it's you're duplicating yourselves and you're making it easier for people to spend time with you. And so by increasing your online profile, you give people the chance to do that because very often whoever we're most familiar with, whoever we spend the most time with, we feel the most comfortable with, and we try to spend even more time with them. And so it's that idea of trying to dominate, trying to take more of that research time, trying to give people chances to spend more time with you. Like if I wanted to spend 7 hours this weekend just reading your work and seeing your interviews and hearing your thoughts on things, would I be able to do that? On a related note as well, Daniel Priestley notes that the more people are educated, then the more they are also likely to spend. And so, for instance, like in my coaching programs, like I have all different kinds of levels, and very often the people who are picking my group coaching program are the people who have spent the most time seeing my online profiles. Now you may think, and this is a complaint, I see some artists actually just wrote a post, I believe it was on Facebook yesterday, about people complaining about, you know, posting a lot online. They don't want to be a bother. But here's the thing with online, you know, when people are subscribing or being your follower or subscribing for your newsletter, understand that this is a choice. People didn't have to do that. They could block you. If you're really bothering them, you know, they can block you, they can hide you. So the fact that they don't do those things and they actually do the opposite, they subscribe, they press follow, they press like, they leave a comment, these are choices. And so by actually being online, what you're really doing is you're giving people more choices to interact with you or not. You're also giving them a choice to silence you as well. So this is something you want to keep in mind. It's not a burden. If it's a burden, people can manage that. One of the advantages too of having an online presence right now, that Daniel notes, is that it's easier and cheaper than ever. Like, I don't pay for ads. For my communication business, I do not run ads. In fact, Google pays me because I have a couple YouTube channels that are monetized. So every month, I'm getting a paycheck from YouTube, from Google, for putting my content there and telling people about techniques and strategies for achieving the change that they seek for themselves. I'm paid to do that. And so in the past, to reach people, you'd be spending a lot of money because you'd have to do like newspaper ads or do articles and things like that, billboards. You don't have to do any of that anymore. And in addition to that, not only is it cheaper to reach people, it's reaching the right people. Before, like, if you put a newspaper ad, you're not trying to target every single person who's reading that newspaper. There's only a small number of people that you're really trying to reach. Whereas now, as people like your profiles or come back to them or receive your newsletters or whatever it is, when people choose to opt into what it is that you're describing, you're specifically targeting that person. So again, you're finding the right person and you're doing it for minimal dollars or even $0. And maybe you're actually getting paid at the same time, which also speaks to the importance, the next objective that Daniel has, to when you're making this online presence, working towards that consistency. You're trying to have people know about a specific thing you do. For my communication business, the tagline is, I'm going to teach you how to speak better than native speakers. We're going to go through techniques that are crucial for having clear, natural sounding communication. We're talking about techniques that a lot of other people are not talking about. We have an ambitious goal. For Diverses, it's all about living on poetry. So if you're just someone that's doing poetry on the side as a hobby, just to get your art out a little bit, cool, nothing wrong with that. Do that. But if you're a poet who's like, no, I want to actually build my entire life around this, cool, then the platform's for you. We can talk about strategies to do that. So by posting online, it gives you greater clarity on what it is that you want to do, and it also creates greater clarity for the people you want to touch. The last portion of this book, Key Person of Influence, from Daniel Priestley, that I want to touch on today, is talking about partnerships, which are also going to help you build that online presence as well, and faster, because just as you're creating your poetry business, your art business, other people are also creating their own businesses too, working just as hard as you are. And so when you're able to leverage that together, both of you can achieve some pretty significant gains for yourself. So a couple ways that you can do that are through, firstly, creating affiliates. So for instance, let's say you have like an offer, like I have a group coaching program. What I could do is I could talk to maybe other people in communication space or other adjacent spaces, and I could say, hey, here's a link. If you get people to sign up for my group coaching program, you'll receive a commission, 10%, 15%, 5%, whatever it may be. So it encourages other people to talk about what you're doing. And then you can draw in their markets, their business, the people that want to work with them, who may also be interested in what you offer too. Naturally, you can also try to take affiliates from other people as well. Another strategy that Daniel talks a lot about, and I encourage you to check out the book itself if you want to get more into nitty-gritty on it, is partnerships. Partnerships are key. We can't just do things alone. A lot of times I'm partnering with individual poets. Second half of this year, one of my goals is to partner more with larger organizations as well. What partnerships allow you to do is they allow you to, for instance, you can create bundles. Like, let's say Matthias from our Arts and Offers video podcast, he does a lot of filmmaking. Something that we could do is we create a partnership. Like, hey, I'll help people create a workshop. He can document the process. So you leave with the workshop with a recording of yourself doing your workshop, but then you also see the documentary about creating the workshop, holding it, your thoughts and insights, the impact and things like that. So that'll be an example of how we can combine like a filmmaking poetry business and a poet development poetry business together. You see this all the time too. For instance, on this street where the stanza is located, once a month they have what's called like the Hilltop Hop, where like the bookshop's open, they bring in like a food truck, they do different discounts, they bring in like vendors and things like that. That's a collaboration between all the little businesses on this street. And so you're able to draw people who already know about you, but you're also able to draw people who otherwise maybe would not have known about you, and vice versa for the other businesses, right? And you're all able to come together to create something. And when you're creating these bundles, it may take pre-existing services or offers that you have. For instance, there's like a ceramics shop we could potentially do a collaboration where it's like you can buy a ceramic and you can also buy a canvas with like a haiku written on it or something like that, So it's taking things that maybe we already have, or it could be creating something entirely new, a whole new experience. As you pursue partnerships, here are just some final thoughts and guidelines that may make that process easier for you, based again on Daniel Priestley's Key Person Influence. The first thing is that when you're looking for partnerships, you're not really looking for partnerships. You're looking for relationships. You're not just looking for clients. You're looking for people that you can, build your life around together to some degree, right? So really trying to appreciate the depth of the experience that you're trying to create. A strategy that Daniel also advocates for is that when you have an idea for whatever it is that you want to launch, contact 3 people about it to see how they could get involved with it as well. And it could be that none of it pans out, and that's fine too. But it's just this idea that, hey, try not to do things alone, trying to be like, okay, how can I get this going with this other group? As you're working with partnerships, remember that we are in a process of negotiation. It's not manipulation. If you get everything out of it and they get very little or nothing, it may work for you in the short term, but when it comes to having, for instance, a second go around or a new idea that comes up, they're not going to want to work with you. And honestly, why would they? It has to be a mutual interest. And sometimes for mutual interest, that means that your own needs aren't always going to be first. Sometimes you got to put yourself second or even third. As you're doing this too, take the time to celebrate what the person you're working with is doing. Celebrate their accomplishments. You see that they do something, take time to acknowledge them. You don't even have to mention yourself at all. Just showing your support for others is really beneficial. And then from a more technical standpoint, 2 things you want to consider. Having some sort of written contract or written document that notes what you expect the responsibilities to be. This is something that can be tricky, especially if you're starting some sort of partnership or organization with friends. Because a lot of times you don't think about that. Because you're like, oh, we're friends. We all get along. But it's good to kind of have things in black and white. So that way, if things ever do change, life circumstances, maybe someone has kids, maybe someone gets married, maybe someone moves away, maybe someone doesn't have the same energy or interest in continuing the business. What happens in those situations? Well, you can have it all in documentation and you know what the steps are. Lastly, you also want to have some sort of system in place. So for instance, if it's something that's sales-based or commission-based, determine who gets what amount based on the sale. If it's something that's more of like a time-based project, have like a log to just kind of see, how long should people work per week or per month or per year on this specific project? Are people going over? Are people going under? Are they meeting specific expectations? And lastly, if you're creating like a whole new thing that maybe it's going to take an upfront investment of money, determine how that's going to be repaid. All of these sorts of terms. So that way you can avoid the gray area. Again, what I often tell my students, like if you know that you need to get from A to C, don't just start your journey and be like, oh, well, I know I'm going to end up there some way. No, hash it out, clear it out. There's no gray area. We want everything to be very, very clear all along the process of what the expectations are. If you have created an art business or a poetry business and you have some own experience with working with partnerships that you think would be helpful for people to know, you can leave them in the comments below.